Seems like we're ready to go.
I think it's about to happen.
Shall we start?
Let's begin.
Okay, welcome everyone. This is a program of the Slate School's Education Idea Lab, which is a virtual series free and open to the public. This thought-leading event convenes leaders, change makers, and participants from all sectors of education and innovation. Slate School is an independent 501c3 nonprofit K-12 school where education is focused on cultivating creativity, fostering ingenuity, and inspiring a deep passion for lifelong learning. Slate School convenes experts for important, authentic conversations about education, and these dialogues, like today's, are free and open to the public. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're so excited to be here and to have you. My name is Wendy Ostroff, and I'm an applied cognitive and developmental psychologist, and I'm a professor at the Hutchins School of Liberal Studies, which is kind of a Slate School for grown-ups, where I train future teachers on innovative teaching and learning techniques. And I am here with Julie Mountcastle, and Julie is head of school at Slate School. She's the grade 2-3 teacher and a member of the founding team of the Slate School, where she developed and leads the school's unique curiosity-driven curriculum. Julie has been an educator since 2001 and has been at the forefront of child-centered education. So welcome, Julie, and I'm so happy to be here with you, facilitating this conversation between us on curiosity-based or curiosity-driven education. So
I did too. Thank you. It's a little strange to be on this side, but I'm excited. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just dive in, shall we?
All right.
Okay. So I kind of want to start with a question that I think is one that I've really wrestled with myself and spoken to colleagues about, and that is, can all learning be curiosity based or curiosity driven? What about things that aren't as fun? Or what about things that are repetitive, like learning the times tables? Or what about practicing scales on an instrument? How do we teach kids to do the boring stuff? Or can we get all learning to be driven by their genuine interest and curiosity? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that's always the goal, right? I think that's what we're after. And it's funny, the two things that you mentioned, multiplication tables and instrument scales. For me, those are two just really elegant little nodules of thought. And I think we talk here a lot about, trying to see the elegance in mathematics, in the patterns of mathematics. And so, when it comes to those two in particular, they're so gorgeous in their simplicity, and they're so elemental, they're so basic, that I guess for some kids, it is hard for them to say, oh, gee, I'm not really interested in doing that, in the practicing of that. But I think if they can get involved in sort of the incredible beauty of something so elegantly designed, then I think that they can access that. They can access the curiosity and creativity in that sort of rote memorization. But, right, there are things that who wants to do them? I don't like to take out the trash, and it's not really going to work for me to say, well, maybe I'll see a raccoon tonight. Won't that be fun? I mean, it would be a perfect world if I could pull that one off. But when it comes to those kinds of things, I think there's a sort of grit that develops around that there are steps that we take every day that may not be the most glamorous part of our journey, but they're all part of our journey. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think looking back on those for kids is really helpful. So, at the end of, say, a project and, a whole cycle, you might say to them, what was really challenging for you? And then it's usually some task-driven moment like that. And then to be able to look back at that and say, and wow, right, you did that? Mm-hmm. And look at what built from that. Look at what happened next and next and next. So
Mm.
maybe we can't make them really super curious about it. But I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know, as you're speaking, I'm imagining, like, as you're saying, this elegance, and I'm also imagining sort of the beauty of a ritual, even something that doesn't sound so nice, like taking out the trash, but there is kind of these guideposts in our life. It's Thursday night, we take out the trash, and for children, I think the ritual can be very, very beautiful in the family. And I've noticed that with children in my life, that they kind of remember these things as, oh, wasn't it so amazing when we, snap the ends off the beans together. And so these things that could be really kind of boring can take a different view. I hear you saying that maybe we need to just look at things in a different light, right? Is like take a step back or reflect on what did we do, or just what about hard work? What about, doesn't it feel good to do hard work afterwards?
Well, I think kids love hard work, right? They're always looking for the purpose in what they do. But as you were talking too, I thought, we do something on Friday. So we collect here in our classrooms, we collect all of the scraps and compost all during the week. And we have these, gorgeous clear compost bins. And we collect all the scraps, all the, organic foods from the week. And then on Friday, what might be take out the trash, actually, I'm thinking now, is, take the scraps to the compost bin, and then, turn the compost bin 3 times. And so actually, thinking about ritual, what we do is we have the compost procession, where we have a song that we sing, brilliantly, orchestrated to the tune of "O Tannenbaum," "Oh compost bin, how lovely is your soil." And we march, everybody in the entire school out to the compost bin, where we, in a very ritualistic way, we count as we dump the things into the bin, and then special people spin it. So, maybe there are ways to make learning or make doing of things that are not glamorous really fun. But I do think you're right that there is something to learning how to stick with it and do the things that aren't exciting in pursuit of your goals and your dreams.
Yeah, it reminds me of some work, some things we've been reading in my class. I teach child development to future teachers, and we've recently read this work about the teacher's attitude towards something really does affect the children's attitudes so much, as we've learned as educators. And they were talking in particular about math, about if you were a woman math teacher who had bad experiences around math, which some of these young women have, then whether or not you say it, that implicit message will come through, that it's like, oh, get this math over with to do something fun. The children are hearing that loud and clear, that, oh, math is not fun. But as you're saying, I feel like to think about the compost as this amazing, what's about to happen when you put those scraps in that bin is going to start this incredible chemical change, and this incredibly profound process, right? And so to bring that in and be part of kicking off this amazing process, I think is it just a very different way to look at it. So it's like we have to approach our own biases maybe about interesting and boring first, because they're going to be looking to us to do that.
And hopefully somebody in the community of your school or your, whatever your institution is where you're trying to inspire young people, hopefully there's somebody in that group who can lead you to that. We don't always have to be the ones doing it.
Right. I think there's an authenticity that really matters too, right? Because sometimes if you're like, this is amazing, eat your vegetables, they're not going to buy it.
You're
but
right.
at some point, if you can really get, I feel like the thing is for teachers, and that maybe brings up another question, how can we set up a classroom where the teachers are genuinely curious too? How can we develop teachers to have that habit of mind? What would that look like in a teacher training, or what would that look like in bringing in new teachers on board in a school such as yours that's doing things pretty differently?
Well, what a freeing thing, right? To be able to say, because I think it boils right down to the big 3 words, I don't know. to give teachers, people who are standing in the classroom as the tall person in the room, give them the freedom to say, I don't know. I'd love to find out, or could you teach me? And I think the weight of having to be somebody at the head of the classroom who knows everything is just, I can't even imagine it anymore. And I know I experienced that pressure earlier in my career. I know that there were times when a child would ask me a question and my face would light up, in red from starting to hear. My ears would get hot because I didn't know. And aren't I supposed to know everything? Because they're looking at me like I'm supposed to know. And I think it's really such a glorious, freeing experience to be able to be a learner. And how better to inspire your students than to say, well, gee, I'm learning here too. I think it gets someplace for the teacher that is a really beautiful model of the learning journey. And I think it empowers the children. So it's like a win-win. But it's surprising, even when I interview people who are thinking of coming to work here at Slate School, they are, they can be surprised by that, we want you to say, I don't know. We want you to have your own project topic. We want you to struggle. And we're really invested in you growing in whatever way you want to grow.
Right. There's a quote and that I really love by Parker Palmer that says, teaching is a daily exercise in vulnerability. And I'm thinking about that, is that to not be so in control, to be able to be vulnerable with people, which of course vulnerability is how we develop intimacy with people, right? And so to form kind of a close classroom where the children really can count on, that authentic, real bond with their colleagues, with their friends, and with their teacher. And so I'm just wondering about, and in what ways do we have to risk in order to foster curiosity? And I think your point of not knowing, allowing not knowing, is such a big one. And one that I might throw in and ask what you think is, what do you think about the plan? What do you think about throwing out the plan when appropriate? Or how do we know when to throw out the plan as a teacher?
Yeah, you're saying so many important things here. I don't know where to go first. The plan, which I think for so many years seemed like something that you had to develop, and you'd plan for the whole week. And you'd say, on Monday, I'm going to do this. And on Tuesday, I'm going to do this. And on Wednesday, I'm going to do this. And then if something happened that you weren't there, you felt terrible. And you thought, oh no, how can I possibly get back on track? When what was really happening was the actual stakeholder in the room was giving you the real feedback. This is not where I need to be. I need to be over here. And so for us, our plans just are written the night before, and they're based on what the children were doing that afternoon. And so we have our, the things that we hope to get to, the things that we want to teach into. We know this child is ready for this new understanding. This child is on the cusp of being ready for this and something else. And there's so many ways to get at that. And so we create for ourselves like a menu of opportunities. And then we look to see what really lights the kids up, what really sparks their interest. And so every day the plan is in some way tossed aside. Mm-hmm. And it's the most freeing thing. And I think it actually keeps your brain working as a teacher. You're not just sort of stuck in that lane where, you've decided what you're going to do. You're actually thinking on your feet and flexible and saying, wow, okay, so what they're really interested in today is digging a really deep hole. And that is completely fascinating to them. And actually, it is fascinating to dig a really deep hole. uh, and so just to actually cast your mind back and think about what you know about learning and children and their development, and find the ways to make the meaning for them in this very purpose-driven activity. And so tossing the plan is where it's at, man.
Mm.
Tossing the plan is where it's at. I don't know if that's how you feel too.
I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. And I know you have a background in acting, and I think of it as a improv as opposed to a script, right? Like we have our script and we can do our play, and scripted plays are beautiful. But I think of teaching as such an improv kind of exercise where something's going to get thrown at you and you have to have many possible ways to go to not disrupt. I mean, it kind of brings up, for me, I always have to come back as an educator of like, what is the point, right? What's the point of school? What's the point of learning? What's the point of school? And then, of course, it always gets bigger of like, what's the point of life? But we don't have to go there. But I mean, the idea is sort of, if the students are doing something great, why would we ever disrupt that? Right, to go to our own agenda. And a lot of the research that I've done in some of my writing about curiosity has found that when curiosity is interrupted, it's interrupted by teachers on a plan, or it's interrupted by time frames.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about time. I mean, I'm interested in the relationship of curiosity and time. That how much of curiosity is getting carried away or riding a wave of interest that has fits and starts. So I wonder if you could speak to that, how the structures of time are used in at the Slate School, or just in general, like what do you think we should do with time? And if time is do you agree that that's an important variable?
I do, because, it's kind of from the sublime to the ridiculous, so you could be in a setting where every moment of every day is scheduled. And I am always surprised by children who are resilient and creative enough to find creativity and curiosity within that. And because it does exist, we see them do it. It's remarkable. Obviously, it's better if you can be free to follow that wave of curiosity and create, and the creativity that follows it. But I think the challenging piece for a teacher, and every year, every day, with every student, I feel like I'm a novice, because I don't know that child, or I've never experienced this moment before. And my goal is always to be in the present, to be right here, not thinking about Tuesday if it's Monday, not thinking about what happened over the weekend or on Friday, to be in that present moment with those children and riding that wave with them, but being that magical facilitator who can feel things kind of going off kilter, and to know and to have the bravery and the honesty to first stand back and let that be a little bit. I had a wonderful mentor. Her name was Ann Kyler, and she said, Julie, if things are going sideways, stand back. The kids will tell you what to do. And she's so right. And it seemed to me, early in my career, I said, I believe you, Anne, but I was scared. But I was scared of that. But it is true. Stand back and watch them. They'll tell you what to do. And you can ride the wave, and then you can bring things around to a comfortable, sort of not a conclusion, but a pause. And in that pause, if you frame it right, it sends kids into another place, reflecting. And if you add reflection to curiosity and creativity, I think that's when you get something that is so extraordinary. And they are so capable of it. And so often we don't give them that room. So at Slate School, that's what we're trying to do. Write it as long as we can, give them time to sort of make sense of what's happened, and then go back maybe with a new plan or new tools or new ideas, together, always collaborating, teacher, student, student, and teacher. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah. And I like that idea of that reflective piece as kind of being the glue between these, these exciting moments, because there's getting carried away in a good way, and there's getting carried away in a way that's turns into some kind of chaos. And it is a balance sometimes, to keep people, kind of in their best frame, or to keep the group dynamic working, or to keep, I always like the idea of mixed pacing, that, not everybody needs the same due date. Does everyone need the same due date of this paper? Do you need a stretched out version of it? And do you need a condensed version of it to knock it out? And for me, that doesn't matter. But I feel like it's one of those sort of things we become attached to in education, is, in a certain way, or the check marks, or the learning outcomes. And I find that harming to
yeah, absolutely. I used to say sometimes that I was a really good teacher until the last week of the project cycle. And then as everybody's trying to wrap everything up, and I'm, walking around the room trying to be this sort of just calming presence and kind of, encouraging, that was the hardest week of the year, the hardest week of every project cycle, because, all of a sudden, everybody who's been on their own learning journey the whole time, and we've been encouraging that from the very first time they step onto the campus here, follow your own learning journey. Suddenly we are asking them, we're all gonna now have our project presentations next Friday. And to help them comfortably and joyfully come to that, or to understand too that, like, you do not have to, what you're presenting is not the end of your study. You might study birds again and again and again, and that is something that I think it's incumbent upon us to kind of share with kids. I was really happy at the end of this last project cycle, because one of the questions we asked the children is, do you have a finished feeling? And for the first time, Wendy, everybody said no.
Oh.
I'm going to come back to this again. And I was so happy. I almost cried big salty tears, because that's what we want, because, learning about something is forever. It's everything. You find something that you're interested in, and, you're done with studying it, when you're 5. I hope you find something else that's a little bit more thrilling to you ultimately. But I just love hearing that they're not done, that there's so much more to learn.
I agree. I'm inspired by that. And it's funny, because I do a very similar kind of project with my college students, and it's interesting to see these connections. But I do this project where they have to take a piece of research, of science, of child development, and they have to find an application. How is this going to work? And they do things like TED Talks and podcasts, and basically bring this knowledge to the world that you find interesting. And the only qualifier is really that you have to genuinely be interested. So I just, they take a long time to find their topic, but I feel like this is something that you may, this may turn into your master's thesis. This may turn into your first book. This may turn into your presentation to the school board next year on how important it is to, extend recess time, how important it is, these are issues affecting kids. And I'm amazed to watch the process for people of how they find something to get passionate about, and how they can really kind of hook in. And it is exciting. I think maybe I'll try your question of, is this finished for you? Because it's exciting to me to think that just launching them in the world, in something they're interested in, can be so powerful. That for me brings up another question, which is about curriculum. So you're sort of in charge of curriculum, and if we think of curriculum as stuff, I kind of think of it as stuff, like, is there a stuff that you come out with? And then there's a whole process that goes with it. How attached should we be to a particular curriculum. Now we're seeing this in COVID. My kids where I am in California are learning from home still, and they've had to really let go of a lot of the things that they wanted, the stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's great because the attachment to the stuff sometimes derails the process. So I'm wondering if you have any feeling about that. Like, what if they don't ever get to something? Like, what if they don't ever get to this stuff that we call important, but they get somewhere else that's going to drive them and light them up and get them engaged? How attached should we be to the stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think that every educator worth their salt struggles with that, and we should struggle with it. I think that we should look hard and we should use everything we know. And at Slate School, we've stolen from everybody. Any good ideas in the world, we've tried to steal them and bring them back here and use them. And we do get attached to them. We're human, right? But what we try to do here is just, we call it a living document. And at professional development throughout the year, we stop and we'll spend 3 or 4 hours just talking about one element of the curriculum, and we'll say, listen, are these really reasonable? How do you see kids? How do you see kids attempting this? How do you see them accessing these ideas? What do they do? What are they doing? And then after they can do this, what can they do next? Why is it important for them to be able to do this? And, this year, you mentioned COVID, and it's been the source of a lot of conversations here too, because we'll say, is this just a COVID question? Is this something that we should let this sit this year? And then next year, let's see if we have the same questions about this particular benchmark. Is it just the year? Is it the fact that kids were home for 8 months, and their learning was never interrupted, because we know kids were learning the whole time and they learned amazing things. It wasn't the same kind of learning. So was missing that the piece that now is leading us to question this part of the curriculum? Or is this something that we should really just be questioning and talking about and thinking about? And I feel so fortunate. Wendy, because when I have that conversation, I'm having it with the most remarkable people. Mm-hmm. And just such a variety of lenses. So maybe I'm not understanding something, and somebody says, well, but wait, I saw a child actually doing that, and it was very meaningful for them. And as other children saw it, they began to want to do that too. And so while you might not think of that as something that, perhaps kids are immediately mastering right now, they're interested in it and it seems important to them. So it shouldn't be moved aside. But I think that's the key. I think it has to be a living document. And I think too often we get so, we fall so in love with our ideas, and they're well-intentioned. When we started here the first year, we were so excited with the opening classroom here is called Treetop. It was the K1 room. And we were so excited as a faculty thinking about trees. And we had just, so many conversations where the faculty was talking about, there's so many amazing understandings about trees, and they talk to each other through the algae, at the base of their roots, and it's all living and everything, it works together, and it's just like us. And and the first time we mentioned, the study of trees to kids, it was total crickets. It was total crickets. No, not a single, maybe it was the way we said it, or maybe it was just like they were not interested. And so even though we were so in love with it, we had to just say, yes, trees are nice. And we had to put it all aside.
Yeah.
And we had to try again. We had to think again. We had to observe them more, but we'd come up with the whole idea without them there. And I think sometimes that's what we do with curriculum. We say, oh, well, we want them to be able to do this and this. So we'll start down here and we'll ease it up. Really need them in the room.
Right, right. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And it's hard because we get so excited about our ideas, and we're learners too. And I was a terrible I taught preschool for a very short time, and I couldn't believe nobody ever liked my plan. I mean, my plans never worked. I learned so quickly how silly it was, my best laid plans that never, ever, ever worked. And it's, sort of the classic story of the child opens the present and they love the box.
Right.
The box is the most fun part of the whole thing, to keep us guessing. And so I wonder about should we take into account the goals of the learner when we're designing our lessons? And should we take into account or even give children voice? Like we have the concept of emergent curriculum. And I think that concept kind of took root in the younger ages and preschool and a little bit above, but it certainly seems to fall away in designing curriculum as children get older.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure that out. Is that just power? Is that just, I know better? Or why can't the kids decide how they spend their time and what they do? I mean, what would be wrong with that? I wonder if.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Actually,
Yeah,
I think that's fantastic.
Why doesn't that happen?
I think it doesn't happen because of fear.
Yeah.
I think it's fear, and I think it's. I don't even know if this is possible to have well-intentioned fear, but I think that's what it is. When children are in preschool, and I think preschools have been just head and shoulders ahead of the way we educate kids going forward from there. I mean, I think they listen. I think they understand that kids have to hold things in their hands, that math doesn't make any sense if you don't know that it's about a something. I often ask kids, if they tell me they can add, some incredible number, they say, well, I know that 150 and 150 is 300. And I say, that's fantastic. 300 what? And, so many times there is no what. It's
Right.
just this idea of this number, and preschools have done such a good job about teaching the what, holding it in your hand. And I think that as we move through education, educators in their well-intentioned heads, getting attached to their well-intentioned plans and their earnestly thought out curriculum, they begin to think that, well, if we don't do that, they won't be ready. If we don't move them in this direction, then, well, what will they do? And I think parents likewise have the same concerns. We want our children to grow up and be, have a better life than we have even. And we're doing fine. And it's that fear, I think, that stops us from actually really trusting the stakeholder, trusting the child. And I don't know exactly how to get past that, except for to have a good group of people around you that call you on it when you fall prey to it. But I'll tell you, we at Slate School, we have really we have something that I think works well, and it's always evolving, but we have this goal and commitment process every week. So students, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, every grade, they come in on Monday, and on Monday they choose a goal for themselves for the week. And it can be anything, a better cartwheel, or I want to be a brilliant reader, a great reader, a better reader. And then they craft a commitment to that. So we say, when we describe what that is, we say, well, what are you willing to do this week to get closer to your goal.
Mhm.
And so they craft a commitment, and then it's announced to the, to our entire community. So in your classroom. So if you want to get better at doing a cartwheel, then you say, I'm going to get better at doing a cartwheel, and I'm going to do 10 cartwheels when we're outside every day. And the rest of the group says, awesome, we'll hold you to it.
Mm.
And in that way, I think there are two things that happen. One is the child is completely affirmed. What you want to do is important, and we want you to do it. And then the community is affirmed by saying, not only do we want you to do it, we're going to help you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that listening and that sharing in that moment is so important. And then as the week goes on, the kids check off whether they were able to keep their commitment. And on Fridays, they share out how many times they kept their commitment, not whether or not they met their goal. Because what we want them to do is to be able to craft a wise commitment and stick with it. Because we know that if we can craft a good commitment to something and continue to do it, we're gonna be able to do anything. It doesn't matter if I practice this only on cartwheels. It is going to work when next I want to do something else. When I want to master calculus, I can make a goal for myself, and I can do it because I know how. And those goals, I know, show up and influence what we do with our curriculum.
Mm. Right.
So
as you're listening, so you're taking that in and looking at the room, looking at the stakeholders. I love that. And you're able to say, okay, we have all of the, kind of get the collective energy of the room and say, what are these kids, what are they working on, right? What's their project? What are they interested in?
Yes.
And that,
and it might not be necessarily, I mean, they're working on their project topics too, but what they're really working on is something about this, and if it's about a cartwheel, it's about more than a cartwheel. It's about, a cartwheel is a pretty advanced move. It requires a lot of coordination and thinking and preparation. And I think those are all things that can be applied to anything else.
But to be valued in that way as a member of a community and to have a say in what you're doing and to set those goals, I think seems to be so powerful for learning. Because, when we look at the psychology of learning, it's motivation, right? It's like motivation is what we need for learning to happen. If there's no motivation, there's no learning. And then, so I feel like we get stuck in the wrong place. We get stuck in the wrong, like, how do we get them motivated to what we want? Instead of, the whole point was, coming back to like, what's the point of school? And I guess it's an open question. What's the point of school? I keep thinking, I keep thinking the point of school is that the starting point is that they love to learn and they know they have the tools to learn. I mean, it's like just loving it and knowing I know how to do it, or going to be supported in doing that. And anything that I'm trying to sort of tell my future teachers that is like, anything that gets in the way of this child loving to learn is bad, including your curriculum, including anything that will derail this child's love of learning. Like, don't do it. That's your boundary. If you're gonna derail something that's a love of learning, like, don't. Protect that at all costs, because we see, right, in young children, it's there, and it slowly falls as they get kind of railroaded through this hierarchical system. I just imagine, why couldn't that goal, setting a goal and making a commitment, why couldn't that be all the way through? And of course, at Slate School, I'm sure it will be running all the way through. But I wonder, like, can these things be done in a non-innovative environment? Can we disrupt the system? Or maybe disrupt the system is a negative way to say it. Maybe we should say, can we inspire other educators that have less freedom in ways to bring curiosity and to bring self-determination and to bring that kind of community orientation into their classrooms too.
I hope so. I hope so. I want to just go back just to one thing. We were saying anything. I love what you're teaching right now. I'm inspired by what you're doing with educators, because it's so tenuous. A child's hold on that love of learning when they come to us. And we have just way too much influence on how they're going to respond to that for the rest of their lives. I mean, I say, it is an incredible honor and responsibility to be in the classroom with your child on their first day of their formal education. But every year I feel that, because they do come with that idea, and hopefully they come with it. There may be some kids who have already said, who have already heard words like, well, you can't do that in school. You're not going to be able to do that when you get to kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And we should just get rid of that phrase. Mm-hmm. We should just get rid of that phrase, because kindergarten needs to really feel like an extension of home, where learning is just the most glorious adventure. And it's so great. And look, these people are here just to let me do more of that. Their whole job is to give me stuff that I want to explore with. I mean, it's like, it's like Christmas every day, or it should be. And I think, again, it's that fear piece that makes us has society telling kids that, well, you're not going to be able to do that in first grade. You better be able to do this. And it's so antiquated and so opposite to what we're trying to inspire in kids. Mm-hmm. And boy, when you see that in action, it is, I don't know, it's goosebump central. It's not, and it's so meaningful to them. And it is the gasoline that gets them going.
Oh, I so agree, Julie. I so agree. And it's funny because I see them on the other side. So you have students who are the very, very first day of coming to formal education. And I get these students who have gone through their whole K through 12, and that now this is their first day of university life. And they, and many of them have really been beaten down. I mean, they really I'd say 95% of the students I see have come in, and I say, well, what are you passionate about? Like, what do you want to know? What are you like? Let's go where you want. I want this paper to be a topic that you are so excited. You can't stop thinking about this. And it can be anything. I'll help you, but it has to be authentic. You can't fake it. And they line up outside my office. I do this in the first essay always. And they line up and they say, what do you want? I don't get it. Where's the prompt? Yes. What do you want? How do I get my good grade? And I feel like, no. It doesn't even matter the grade. We're not even going to grade it. Like, it doesn't matter. You just have to do it. But it has to be what you want to tell, what you want to explore. That's the topic. It has to be authentic you. And they feel, I have people break down and they say, no, it's got to be a trick. Like, where's the trick? The trick is or they just say, no one has ever asked me that in my 12, 13 years to do this. This is so derailing to them to be asked about what they're genuinely interested in, that it takes months and months. But the good news is they pop out the other side, because they're still humans, and they still do. There's a little spark in there, right? And we can light that flame again just by opening. It's just by saying, I'm interested in you. I'm interested in you.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in this critical analysis of the book. I'm interested in your analysis of the book. Connect. And so I feel like, I wonder it's just like we've got the bookends. We just got to get that middle part where because as you said, in preschool, um, there's a lot of really engaging with the learners.
Yes.
There's a lot of freedom. Preschool teachers have a lot of freedom, right?
Yeah.
And in higher ed, I have a lot of freedom too. No one's checking on my lesson plan. I can throw that thing out the window. I mean, I can go with syllabus, but we can recreate, reinvent, we can do whatever for the most part we want. And that's such a gift, but the middle people, the poor middle folk are stuck with so many things, so many structures.
Well, you asked how can we kind of I'm going to say like infect.
That's a good term for this day and age of COVID.
Let's try to infect the rigid system with just a little bit, just a little bit. And I actually don't think it's that hard, because I think that even with time constraints, and I hope my friends in contemporary classrooms and schools not like Slate School will forgive me if I'm way off here and I'm asking too much of you. But I think that you want this, because I think that this is the education that this is the reason that you chose this job.
Mm-hmm.
And it was to find what was unique about every child and grow that in a way that left the child feeling powerful and beautiful and unique and brave to make mistakes. These are all of the things that we all went to school to be educators to do. So, and I think that there are simple ways to do it. I think that you can set goals and commitments in your classroom. And I think that that's a powerful practice. You could do it in your morning meeting, briefly. But then I also think that just giving kids the agency to write what they think and talk about their response. So everybody does read alouds in school. Everybody has to read books. Give kids an opportunity and a vehicle to talk about their unique lens, and keep telling them that their lens is unique and that we're not looking for everybody to have the same answer, because there is no right answer. Every time you read a chapter book, every time you read a storybook, find some time in that process where you're telling the kids that your take on this, how you see this, is as important as anybody else's, and drive it home by saying, listen, they're going to make a movie of this someday and you're going to be furious because what you have in your head about what you've just read is right, and what I have in my head is different, and it's also right. And this is what makes the world go round. And this is what can empower us to kind of give kids back their agency over who they are. And I don't think that is so hard to do. And I think a lot of teachers try to do that all the time anyway.
I do too. Yeah, I agree. And you make me think about dialogue. I think that dialogue can be such a powerful tool in any discipline to give the voices equal weight, right? To let everyone in the room, and the teacher included, the teacher learner, I don't even like to call them a teacher anymore.
I know, but it's hard. Facilitating is too long, right?
No, I know. It's like we all have our, as you say, in dialogue, right? Every voice is equivalent. Every voice has the same weight. And, we think about things like democratic schooling, or, you have a say, and the way you're doing that goal setting is there's a community around you that's going to hold you to your commitments, and to say, we're going to cheer you on, and we're going to be sad when, when it's hard, and we're with you. You're part of this. You're part of this community of people who care about you, which of course is how learning evolved anyway, right? It was like kids always learned with other.
Sure. And you know what? I think I just want to say also, I chose, I think, the easiest example, but that kind of dialogue that you're talking about, and that kind of speaking what's true for you through your lens, can be done with any pursuit. You know, there are a lot of ways to solve a math problem. There are a lot of thoughts in science, and there's room for all of them, because it's having that opportunity to kind of wallow in the complexity and say, I don't really know exactly, but maybe this is what it is.
Mhm.
And to have that maybe valued, that kind of brain growing and that kind of encouragement to grow your brain is what gets us to the new answers. You
Right.
know,
And right. I agree. And we model it as to kind of circle back to what you said at the beginning, that when we don't know everything and we're not being expected to know everything as the facilitator, teacher, learner, I mean, then we get freed up, right? And when we don't have to stick to the plan, then we get excited too. It's much more exciting for me to have some surprise happen in my classroom than to have it stick to my boring plan. I mean, I get so thrilled when they come up with some totally different thing that I never thought of. And I feel like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Yes, let's run with that. And so for the teachers to get to be curious too, I think is really at the crux, and the freedom for the children, and the freedom for the grown-ups too, which makes me think of play. I mean, and maybe play is almost always the glue of all of this, right? Because curiosity itself is a playful kind of endeavor. I just wonder, I mean, we know that kids, you know, around the world learn through play, and they educate themselves in this self-directed exploration, and, you know, throughout time and different cultures. And I'm just wondering, how can we get the teachers to be more playful? Or how can we, you know, what is the link, or how does play relate to curiosity, maybe, is a question.
oh, that's a great question. You know, play is such an interesting thing, because your play and my play probably look very different. Or maybe they don't. Maybe we're very much the same, Wendy, and we would enjoy the same thing. But, you know, play can be, you know, what I enjoy doing and would like to do for hours on end might not be what my colleague wants to do. But I think it's an attitude of playfulness, and I think it, as an educator, I think we have a responsibility to approach learning in a playful way. I think we have to, you know, for example, I don't love to play games. Some of my students love to play games, and so I playfully approach playing games, and I try to get the fun out of it. But I will say, you know, oh, I'm not great at games. That's not my thing exactly. I would rather do this or that. But I am interested in you, and so I want to play games with you, and I'm going to enter into that in a playful way. So it might not be my idea of play.
So
And
maybe that's more of a habit of mind. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right.
About a habit of mind, instead of it doesn't matter how it shows itself, but it's just a play, like a rubber band has play.
Yeah. Well, you know, yeah.
A stretchy person.
I think you're right. And I think there's one common thing that you see in a playful attitude in a classroom where play is important and there's joyful learning happening, and it's laughter. And I think I think I wish we could teach that more. And I don't exactly know how to teach into laughter, but I think that laughter is so important. Like, it's important for the body, you know, but also it's like so important to the soul. You can laugh at yourself. Oh my goodness. You know, your whole life improves. Everything is better.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just hit on a really important insight here, because I'm thinking about laughter just in general, and it's linked to surprise, right? Laughter is linked to surprise. That's when a joke is funny. It sets you up, and then you get surprised, and it's funny. You know, when my son was a baby, there was this one time I was scraping. He was eating yogurt out of a little ceramic bowl, and I scraped the spoon on the bowl to get the yogurt, and he started laughing. I mean, he was probably 1 year old, and he thought it was hysterical.
Hilarious.
The sound, and it really struck me. I'm like, what's funny about this? You know, I kept trying different ways, and it was like, it wasn't what he thought. It was a different kind of bowl. It made a different kind of noise, and it just struck him as so funny because it was so surprising. And I think the idea of a classroom having laughter is the idea of like things can happen that we didn't schedule in. It's
Yes.
like a surprise is so joyful.
Yes. And I think also, when you're laughing, you are not in control. Like laughing is a response and you can't stop it. And it's just like it's coming up from inside you. And if that is happening in your classroom, I think that you're probably doing something right.
Ah, I love it. I wonder, I mean, I almost feel like it's working backwards. Like, how do we get there? Okay, we allow for surprise. Okay, we don't too tightly control. Okay, we let things, run away with themselves when they need to. And, I mean, I just wonder if that could be sort of a hallmark of what we're talking about a curiosity-based classroom or curriculum, is that room for that kind of real spontaneous joy. It really is a spontaneous, uncontrolled joy.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think I mean I know it's possible, but I don't know what the coordinates are for that. I don't know how to sail. I don't know how to sail the ship to that. But I think that if you know that that's your goal, I could make that my goal and commitment. I could say, I'd like to have, X amount of laughter in my classroom every week. And I'm sure that I would have a lot of people that would hold me to it.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it's going to be more silliness. Maybe it's going to be more, do things differently, divergent thinking, flip it on its head kind of things that, that are going to make people laugh.
And I think that this is a germ that could infect.
I think you're right. And it seems like we're sort of running out of time, but I just want to ask one last question, if I may. Is there anything that kind of post-COVID that you feel like we need to, I mean, everyone's talking about this is letting us rethink how we do things. If you could do anything you wanted post-COVID, is there anything you would shift as a result? Like, is there anything that's come up for you during COVID? And I can give my example. So I'll say an example for me is that I'm seeing that my kids don't need to do so much work. My thing that I'd like to come post-COVID is I'd like to say to all teachers across the US, I'd like to say, we can double recess time. Whatever recess time you have, let's double. Because we realized during COVID that we don't need all this. They're still doing fine with a very much smaller curriculum. So let's double recess and go back.
I'm for that. I'm also for the idea that we stop calling it recess, because it's not a stopping of learning just because we've stopped doing what we did at a desk, right? We go outside. I mean, if there's something that I would continue post-COVID, it's just my ongoing pursuit of trying to be able to do absolutely every kind of learning I would ever do inside, at a table, in a chair, on a chair, outside, anywhere. Whether it's getting better at squatting and being able to just hunker down and look closely at the dirt, whether it's but it's taking that with us. We're outside twice as much too, but we've always been outside a lot. And, but I could say, double it up, but let's not call it recess, because nothing's stopping when we go outside. And I think it's a misnomer. And I think it confuses kids, because I think it also tells them something different about what school is, what learning is. Yeah. Because it really separates it from play.
Right. Oh, you're so right, Julie. I couldn't agree more. And you know what? I think we would play together so well.
And I think we'd have a lot of laughs.
Yeah, and this is also a play, right? I mean, this is my idea of a good time.
Me too. Me too.
It's like we're hitting the end, but I'm so thankful. What a quick hour.
Unreal.
It's such a pleasure to talk to you.
Wendy, what classes are you teaching in your next semester? What
next semester? I'll be teaching a class on the brain called The Biased Brain, about the ways that our brains trick us, and we come into the world and we're easily susceptible to smoothing things out and not taking in the full picture. And then I'll be teaching a class, which is a general education class called Challenge and Response in the Modern World. So that's another big topic about what are the economic and social and political and environmental challenges that we have, and how can we respond to those. So that'll be both of those will be small seminars. And
so listen, I would just propose to you now live on Facebook that we should try to find ways to bring our students together. From the beginning of our journey here to the end of their journey there, we should get together via Zoom and find ways that we can collaborate and bring that midpoint, like get closer together in those moments.
I would love to do that. And I think we can do that. And especially with my brain class, because they're going to be looking at just what are the ways that we're limited and how can we open up those limits? And what better than to have university students and elementary students talking together about learning.
I'm hoping that we'll have some students that are interested in the brain too here, because we've had that in the past. And boy, that would make a fantastic connected collaborative study.
Oh, how exciting. All right. Well, you've got me hooked. So I'm in. Count me in.
Awesome. Me too. Wendy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julie. What a pleasure. And this is just the beginning of some exciting things. So
I can't wait. I can't wait. And I do hope we've infected people tonight.
Me too, as well. And maybe we can continue this conversation with whoever's listening too.
I'd love it.
Okay.
So long.
Thank you so much. Take care.